Man, down the city, it's quiet as a church mouse, young. I came all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning. So peaceful, young. I don't smell no weed, young. I don't see no homeless people. I mean, I came all the way through the southeast side, all the way down here. You can see now I'm at the White House, jump, man. It's quiet, young. It's a shame that it takes somebody to have to sit in your classroom in order for you to be in order, young. Because that's what it feels like, young. You got to be babysitted to do your job, young. Stuff been out of control for years. You got to do better, young. You got to do better, young. And mainly, young, you got the problems. It's us, man. It's always us giving everybody a bad name, young. We'll see how long this lasts, young. How many murders was it last night? How many carjackings was it last night? Talk to me.
So now that Trump's federalization of Washington, D.C.'s law enforcement is now in full effect, I have to say it is truly hysterical to witness just how helpless and useless Democrats are to actually do anything to stop it. It's like watching the ICE raids all over again, because it turns out that despite all of their constant whining, moaning, and crying about how this is racist or this is an authoritarian takeover of our cities, deep down, they understand what Trump is doing right now is fully within his authority. After all, Washington, D.C., according to the Constitution, does indeed fall under federal control. The so-called self-governance of the district was a voluntary gift given by Congress and the federal government. It's not required. We absolutely can take it back, and that's kind of the situation you're seeing on one hand. But secondly, I'd also like to point out, not only do I believe that Democrats are losing the legal and political battle here, they're also losing the rhetorical one, because it turns out that all these talking points about how crime is down, crime is not real, as a matter of fact, crime is a good thing, recasting the 2020 arguments here, are not exactly a winning strategy across America. As it turns out, the people who live in DC fully understand that crime is not down, the city is not safe, that's bogus, but even people in other cities can fully relate, because this has been something of a nationwide epidemic. So we'll go through all of that in today's video, as well as show you apparently the Democrat reaction to Trump's kind of floating of the idea that they might indeed be expanding this effort to other cities. He announced today he wants to use the National Guard to create basically a response force across America, so that anytime you see left-wing riots, we don't have to watch cities burn for several days and stuff like that. And after, of course, this threat has been put out, you have Democrat sanctuary city mayors like Karen Bass and Brandon Johnson just having a complete meltdown over the idea that, how dare you come do my job for me when I'm not doing my job? So we'll tell you all about it. We'll show you the news. We'll tell you about the meltdowns. First, though, folks, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content as usual, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're almost at 500K subs. Help us get there. Smash that red button. And with that said, let us, of course, I guess, start with what the Democrats have been trying to do to sully the water of what Trump is currently performing right now in D.C. And that's with talking point number one, of course, that crime is down, right? Trump is responding to an imaginary problem. Yeah, back in June, we might have had a congressional staffer who was 21 years old literally get killed very tragically on the way to McDonald's. We have the situation with Big Balls. We have, anyone who knows people who work in D.C. can tell you this across the political spectrum. Even some mainstream media hosts are saying it themselves. Yes, indeed, this is a massive problem. But of course, that's what we're being told. Crime is down. I mean, first of all, I'd like to point out that, when you say crime is down, when you show these statistics, you are, of course, citing the very DC police commander who even back in July, I believe, got put on administrative leave. He might be getting fired here for altering the crime statistics. Okay, as you can see, the FOP, and by the way, this is not from the Trump administration. This is a complaint that was filed actually by the police union in Washington themselves. The FOP alleged that officers in DC Metropolitan Police Department were being instructed to downgrade violent crime reports to lesser offenses. So this might be reason number one why there's something of a disconnect, because you see crime, you see homelessness, you see incidents all across DC, but they keep trying to tell you it's at a 30-year low. Of course, no, it's not, number one. And secondly, right, so not only do Democrats lose the argument because much like inflation, which they also said was down, people have eyes, they have ears, they live experiences in this country. They know that you're completely full of crap. Of course, the second question I think it's worth posing here is down from what, right? Because when crime hit, record highs for the 21st centuries right after BLM, if you bring that problem down, say 5%, 6%, I mean, what difference is that really making? Well, of course, I mean, as the infamous chart shows that Trump has posted everywhere, and I'm sure you've seen, but let's just show it right now again. This is what we're dealing with Washington's 2024 murder rate. And so allegedly this is down. I don't know. That's what they're claiming. Maybe it's down from 2023, but still, where is it at, right? You can see Washington, D.C. has 27.5 murders per capita, right, per 100,000 people. Compare that, for instance, to Mexico City, right? Their capital has 1/3 of the murder rate we do. We have 3 times more murders per capita in the United States capital versus Mexico's capital. Of course, which nation is generally considered dangerous and stuff for violence, right? But it goes on. Islamabad only has a murder rate of 9.2, right? Going all the way down here, Delhi, London, Madrid, virtually nothing compared to DC. Of course, again, this is why you lose the argument. No, absolutely, DC is dangerous. No, absolutely, there's a huge murder and public safety problem. And by the way, even if you want to say it's fine if it's just happening in certain neighborhoods, even though I find that to be pretty ridiculous because everyone's neighborhood should be safe. But this is obviously something that's actually interfering with the actual functions of the government because you're having government officials being the victims of these very crimes. So, of course, that argument is just ridiculous. And I think within days, it's already beginning to fall apart. Again, the people in DC understand that this is not true. I guess they're trying to gaslight people around the country. But again, if you're trying to appeal to people who also live in other cities, this is not a DC alone problem. It's just a prime example of what you're seeing across America, right?
Also, some violent crime is down. Why now?
Why now? Because, it may be down, but the question is always down from what? If we had the 4th largest highest homicide rate in the country 2 years ago, all of a sudden it goes down. People want to pat themselves on the back? No way. Talk to any of the crime victims. I was just at a college a couple weeks ago where I had photos of young kids who were victims of homicides, of shootings, and it happens over and over again. It's not okay because it's down from last year. It's bad. This is the nation's capital. This is a shining city on the hill. We're not going to tolerate it. People are afraid to come to this city.
And notice, by the way, the phraseology that some violent crime is down. Well, of course, the reason that's down is because the police commander is accused of downgrading violent crimes to lesser crimes. This is why, anyone who lives in DC or has been there for a long time knows that the carjackings, for instance, are a massive problem. They're happening all over the place. That's, by the way, exactly what Big Balls was trying to stop when he got the concussion and brutally beat there. Right? But if the carjackings are not going down as violent crimes, then yeah, guess what? The crime rate is down because the only violent crime type is like a murder or something. But notice how they say that. They say violent crime is down. They don't say murder is down. And why is that? Because the murder rate, arguably the most significant violent crime there is out there, is insanely high. Again, 3 times that of Mexico City. Okay, almost, perhaps it's time to ask, which country at this point, in terms of our cities at least, is third world in some aspects, right? We might have the first world economy, but it's a serious problem in America, frankly, that our cities are this insanely dangerous. And it's not something that the people should accept. And Trump here is basically saying, no longer are we going to accept that. We cannot be the richest nation on earth. We cannot be the superpower of the world. And our cities are dangerous, violent cesspools. It's contradictory. It doesn't have to be like this. And again, people are with him here because the people of this country in many different cities are tired of crime. They're tired of homelessness. And again, I'm not exactly sure after what you saw in 2024, whether it's the presidential election, obviously, as people know, but even the local elections, where even in Democrat cities, they were throwing out and voting out, soft on crime George Soros prosecutors, that taking this stance up once again is exactly smart. But of course, that is what Trump derangement syndrome does to you. Of course, the major problem, again, as to why Democrats are losing this battle and losing the argument is even now, guys, the president of the Washington, D.C. Police Union, who, say what you will about public unions in some regard, but notably, the problem is so bad, and keep in mind, this union is the same one mad at the police commander for allegedly changing the crime statistics, guys, has now come out in full support of Trump's takeover here of the police department, saying here, quote, "We completely agree with the president that crime in the district is out of control and something needs to be done. The fact that we need help from federal law enforcement and even the National Guard should not come as a surprise." What an interesting twist of events, right? Take a listen.
President Trump earlier saying he's deploying the National Guard to the nation's capital and placing police under federal control now. Let's bring in D.C. Police Union Chairman Gregory Pemberton. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. So from your view, is this necessary?
Well, look, we completely agree with the president that crime in the District of Columbia is out of control and something needs to be done with it. We have to go back to how we got here, though. In 2020, the D.C. City Council passed an enormous amount of legislation that handcuffs police officers, exposes them to administrative, civil, and even criminal liability, even when they do their jobs properly. And now, 5 years later, our authorized sworn strength is 4,000 sworn police officers. We currently have 3,180. So we have more than 800 vacancies for the position of police officer. And the way the department makes up for that gap is through 2 million hours of mandatory overtime every year. So the fact that we need help from federal law enforcement and maybe even the National Guard, it shouldn't come as a surprise. And we agree with that. I think one of the issues here, though, is that we all know that's going to be temporary. So in order to fix this problem and make sure that it doesn't ebb and flow and that the feds come in and we lower crime and then they leave and we're left holding the bag, it's very important that people know that there is underlying legislation that needs to be corrected so that we can actually properly staff this police department in order to properly police the city.
So not only, guys, is the DC police chief defending what Trump is doing, his criticism is that it won't go far enough or it won't extend permanently. Like, he wants permanent change to law enforcement in DC. And, that's a legitimate concern because Trump kind of has an emergency power here where he can do this. It will expire. What happens, of course, after that 30-day limit? But apparently, the announcement came also today that a reporter asked here, right, what do you do if the 30-day limit unless Congress acts to extend it? That President Trump does indeed want to go before Congress very quickly, and they want to do basically a 2025 crime bill, which I think is something that is long overdue. I completely reject this premise that we've believed for years that, we need more soft on crime policies in America. Crime bills, they're bad, they're authoritarian, they're racist, all this stuff. No, I think everything you've watched in the first half of the 2020s fully justifies that serious national legislation and national reform is required to fix crime in our major cities. And here you have the president saying that he's going to request that from the Republican Congress. And frankly, they better act. And assuming they act, it once again proves that there's nothing DC can do about this. As a matter of fact, I would argue the Congress should go one step further. They should just overturn the D.C. Home Rule Act altogether because, after all, right, Washington, D.C., as I said, our founding fathers never even intended for it to have self-government or electoral college votes or any of this stuff. It was always supposed to be the independent capital that's only under federal control. They wanted that for a litany of reasons, right? They wanted, for the federal government to operate independently of the states and all that. But the practical reason I also see now is that, I would think at least our federal government should have a vested interest in making sure that our nation's capital is actually the glory of the world, not, the complete nightmare and trash can of the world. And, considering that DC self-governance has been a complete failure, it's only made everything worse. Maybe there's an argument to actually take back your constitutional power altogether. But you know what? Even if you want to do it with law enforcement, I say that's a positive first step. So take a listen.
Your federalization of the police has a 30-day limit unless Congress acts to extend it. Are you talking to Congress about extending it, or do you believe 30 days is sufficient?
Well, if it's a national emergency, we can do it without Congress, but we expect to be to Congress before Congress very quickly. And again, we think the Democrats will not do anything to stop crime, but we think the Republicans will do it almost unanimously. So we're going to need a crime bill that we're going to be putting in, and it's going to pertain initially to D.C. We're going to use it as a very positive example. And we're going to be asking for extensions on that, long-term extensions, because you can't have 30 days. 30 days that's by the time you do it. We're going to have this in good shape. And don't forget, in the border, everyone said it would take years and you'd have to go back to Congress. I never went to Congress for anything. I just said, close the border. And they closed the border. And that was the end of it. I didn't go back to Congress. We're going to do this very quickly, but we're going to want extensions. I don't want to call national emergency. If I have to, I will. But I think the Republicans in Congress will approve this pretty much unanimously.
Now, that said, we have to transition to talking about continually how helpless the Democrats are to do anything about this, because if you've noticed, kind of an important question here is, where is DC Mayor Muriel Bowser? Right? She's a big-time left-wing Democrat. Obviously, you see her policies. You see what she's doing in the city that is now basically being revoked and overturned by proxy. Why has she not been standing up to this? Why has she not been doing the Karen Bass route of like, we're going to stop everything. We're going to sue the Trump administration. Well, it turns out, according to some reporting here, that apparently she was trying to behind the scenes, right? Because you notice publicly she sounds so defeated. She's like, well, what's happening here is what's happening, and here's what's going to... And she just ignores basically the reporters asking whether it's like racist or you have a problem with this, right? Apparently, DC Mayor Bowser had looked into all legal options she could take to prevent President Trump's DC takeover, but she found no options and admitted that she could not stop him. You don't say, because again, oh, it's authoritarian. No, what Trump is doing right now is fully legal. The only criticism perhaps is it should have been done sooner. Maybe it should have even been done years, decades ago. Nonetheless, you can see that here on full display in this recent press conference with Bowser and the DC police chief, who, by the way, is a complete idiot, looks completely helpless. Needless to say, it should not come as a shock to anyone that she is essentially being replaced here in her job. But nonetheless, take a listen, because you can hear that helplessness on full display. They lost this battle. They're going to lose it rhetorically, and they lost it politically already. That was settled long ago. Check it out.
News now. We are watching this live news conference on the active, and I'm going to ask my team.
Let's partners who work with us every day, and this is the time for us to do it. I won't go into the details and the devils of our operational plan at this point, but you will see Metropolitan Police Department working side by side with our federal partners in order to enforce the efforts that we need around the city.
Can you tell us what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
But does the Attorney General have the authority to implement changes at MPD, or just request changes?
The executive order is pretty clear, and so is the law. The president has the authority by virtue of the statute to request services. Our organizational chart, how we do business, how we fund the police, how we make changes, none of that has changed.
So you were saying hiring, firing?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser, you've had some time to think about it since yesterday. How do you sum up how this has played out, where you didn't know about this before it was announced?
What I'm focused on is the federal surge and how to make the most of the additional officer support that we have. We have the best in the business in MPD and Chief Pamela Smith to lead that effort and to make sure that the men and women who are coming from federal law enforcement.
Yeah, well, what a just fantastic cast of characters. Not only do you have Muriel Bowser admitting that she's completely helpless, but of course, there was also the DC police chief, if you did not hear her, asking what a chain of command is to the reporter. She doesn't know what that means, right? She's a police chief of a police department, not any police department, the Capitol's police department. Never heard of a chain of command, apparently, in her life. So Well, needless to say, that's what we're dealing with here. It also begs the question as to why is Bowser being so reserved about all of this? I don't know. Perhaps it could be the case. I don't know. Maybe she's scared of the president. She's trying to kind of play nice so that way he doesn't take even more aggressive steps if she wants to get into the legal battle. I don't know. I'm not sure. But with all of that said, the federalization here of DC is only expanding as we speak. And again, Democrats cannot do anything about it as we speak, because Tom Homan today has also further announced that the sanctuary city status for illegal aliens in the district, which I don't know why that was allowed to exist in them to begin with. Again, it's supposed to be a federal district, and yet we have the capital, the District of Columbia, saying that we're not going to follow federal law. Nonetheless, sanctuary city status has indeed been revoked under President Trump's federalization. So there you have it. You love to see it. You love to watch this. Things are changing in America because we had the guts to do it, I guess you could say.
I think D.C. under federal control is not going to be sanctuary city. We're working with the police hand in hand, and we encounter a criminal illegal alien that we turned over to ICE. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I'm not saying every illegal alien in D.C. is a criminal, but many are. So these are people we're going to focus on. An illegal alien criminal safety threat in D.C. is not going to be protected. There's no sanctuary for these people in the city of D.C.
Now, that said, it's of course worth noting that the speculation here, both by the right wing and the left wing, frankly, is that this type of operation, or at least in some regard, is going to expand to other cities, right? Left wingers are saying, oh, this is the blueprint, right? You keep hearing this. This is the blueprint for Trump to do a takeover of all of our cities across this nation. To which I think the right wing is saying, don't tempt me with the good time. Oh, you mean this, right? So Trump's plan to clean up DC, to make it free of crime and homelessness, that might also be applied to other cities. Like, we could turn other cities into nice places that are not third world cesspools. Again, I'm just so scared of this. Nonetheless, of course, Trump has publicly entertained that very idea. You know, he's not denying it either, that look, you know, this is kind of the start. But if other cities in this country are major cities, places that should be icons of the world, once were, like New York, Chicago, LA, many other places, the icons that people think of when they think of America, that's our image to the world. If they're not going to actually crack down on their many problems, then yes, perhaps the federal government could step in. And this, of course, has triggered a meltdown directly from the mayors themselves. We'll show you that in a second. First, take a listen to Trump's announcement that, yeah, look, this could expand. And again, don't tempt me with a good time. That would be so horrible to see other cities be cleaned up as well. Take a listen.
And we're going to have the same thing here. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man. And we have an incompetent governor there. Pritzker's an incompetent. His family threw him out of the business, and he ran for governor. And now I understand he wants to be president. But I noticed he lost a little weight, so maybe he has a chance. You know, you never know what happens. But Pritzker's a gross incompetent guy, thrown out of the family business. But when I look at Chicago and I look at L.A., if we didn't go to L.A. 3 months ago, L.A. would be burning like the part that didn't burn. If he would have allowed the water to come down, which I told him about in my first term, I said, you're going to have problems. Let it come down. We actually sent in our military to have the water come down into L.A. They still didn't want it to come down after the fires. But that was it. We have it coming down. But hopefully L.A. is watching. That mayor also. The city's burning.
Yeah, so obviously we'll see where that all ends up. But in the event that it does happen, what's the left-wing excuse going to be then, right? Are they going to say now that, no, crime is also down in Chicago, it's down in New York, it's down in LA? Eventually you're going to run out of cities, right? Eventually there's going to be so many population centers where a lot of voters in the country live. and live around it, live next to it, whatever, that you're running out of places to gaslight people about saying that the crime is down. Eventually, the whole country's going to figure out, hey, what's going on here? Why do you keep saying crime is down when it's not, But with that said, you want to talk about the blueprint. Well, let's talk about the blueprint for how Democrats are responding, because they're already doing this, right? They're already, after DC was claiming that crime is down, now here you have Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass in response, once again saying that, crime is down, okay? So that's what they're going to do. There's no crime. It's not real. Stop, asking questions about why people are being brutalized in our cities. Here's her meltdown in response to Trump. Take a listen.
It's interesting which mayors and which cities he's chosen to focus on. In Los Angeles, where you have crime down, a 60-year low in terms of homicides, homelessness is down. He points to homelessness and he points to crime in Washington, D.C. I don't know what's going on there, but I imagine that they are not suffering in the despair that he described in his press conference that in any way would warrant the use of federal officials in this manner.
Crime is down at a 60-year low, guys. Homelessness is down too. By the way, I researched this because she's been saying this all month. It's just like the DC crime situation, right? You basically have a chart, and homelessness in 2022 and 2023 hits all-time highs. It came down I believe 3 or 4% from record highs. And what she's saying, homelessness is down for the second year in a row. We're doing such an amazing job. It's so 60-year low of crime in LA, guys. Okay. All right, sure. Again, I'm sure so many people believe this. That's why they just voted out George Gascon and the soft on crime prosecutors who are Democrats. I'm sure that was why. It was because crime was actually down. They wanted crime to go up, apparently. I don't know. Very interesting, right? Maybe we have more George Soros DAs and the crime will go down even further. They'll just manipulate them even more. It's going to look like Mogadishu, Somalia in 1991. But don't worry, everyone. We have a district attorney who's going to say that crime is down. Unbelievable. So that's on one hand. Of course, LA has been named by Trump. We have another character out there, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. His response to Trump potentially floating the idea of a federalization of law enforcement in his city is to say, and I quote, Trump is intimidated by the intellectual prowess of blacks like me. Okay, that's his response. That's apparently why Trump is mad. It's not because Chicago has massive crime problems. It's not because the cities are a disaster. It's not also, by the way, because your sanctuary policies are allowing the harboring of illegal criminal aliens and all of that stuff. No, it's because of the intellectual prowess of him as a black man. Okay, that's his answer. Take a listen.
Okay, fine. Since you are begging, I do believe that Donald Trump is intimidated. I think. Okay, no interruption. So let me just answer that. I do appreciate you begging. So I would just say it like this, that the president has always been intimidated by the intellectual prowess of black men. And so, of course, he would speak in those petite and puerile terms.
Okay, whatever you say, buddy. But I once again want to repeat here. This is the inflation mistake all over again, right? This is and by the way, you're going into 2026 midterms here, where Democrats said inflation was transitory, it wasn't real, everyone felt it, right? And they've paid the price in the next election because of it. It's the same thing here with crime. By the way, I would argue Democrats have already paid the price for this mistake. They're just making the same mistake again. Because you saw a backlash in 2022 and especially 2024, even in Democrat cities, against the crime. You wonder why? That arrow map showed what it did, the swings from the last election. In a place like California, right? I think Trump flipped 10 counties or something like that. LA went several points to the right, all that stuff. It's for many reasons, sure. But this crime issue is a big part of it. Guess what? It is the single most losing issue in politics to be pro-crime and anti-safety. Right? It turns out even liberal voters in blue cities are not a fan of this stuff. You know how they know that? Because the mayor of Oakland got voted out in 2024. So did the local prosecutor in LA, George Gascon, who was allowing all the smash and grabs. There's a reason why, by the way, in Karen Bass's state, we had the proposition to once again make shoplifting and looting illegal, passed with a 70% margin. You know why that is, guys? Because, again, nobody likes crime. But, guys, as you try to reinvent your party, please, I beg you, please continue making this the political stance of your party. I'm sure that's going to go so well for you. I'm sure nobody's going to get wise to your game, by the way. You know, you can just revise the crime statistics just like you revised the economic ones, right? You know, we had a recession under Joe Biden. We had 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. They just said, look, we're going to change the definition of a recession so there's no recession, right? Same thing, same garbage. So good luck with that, Democrats. I'm sure this will work out so well for you. With that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.